Let's get something straight right out of the gate. Kendrick Lamar is not having a good run. Kendrick Lamar is having the kind of run that historians are going to need a separate chapter for. The kind of run that makes other artists put their phones face down and stare at the ceiling. The kind of run that makes you wonder whether this man made some kind of arrangement with the universe that the rest of us were not consulted about. Welcome to Pop Showroom, where we bring you the stories behind the headlines. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because this story goes deeper than anything you've seen in the mainstream media. Because here's what just happened. Luther, the collaboration between Kendrick Lamar and SZA, directed by Canadian director Karena Evans, just took home Best Music Video of the Year at the 2026 Juno Awards. The Junos, Canada's Grammys, one of the most respected music awards ceremonies in the world, held annually to celebrate the best of Canadian music and culture. And Kendrick Lamar, a man from Compton, California, just won one. Sit with the layers of that for a second, because there are several, and every single one of them is interesting. For anyone watching who isn't familiar with the Junos, and there is no shame in that because the ceremony does not always get the international coverage it deserves, here is the context that makes this win land correctly. The Juno Awards have been running since 1971. They are Canada's answer to the Grammys, a formal, prestigious recognition of excellence in music, handed out annually by the Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. Past winners have included legends. The ceremony has a reputation for serious musical credibility. This is not a minor regional award with a small trophy and a gift basket. This is the Canadian Grammys, full stop. And when Karena Evans accepted the award for Best Music Video of the Year, she said something that deserves to be repeated out loud rather than scrolled past. Shout out to the geniuses Kendrick and SZA for their culture-shifting artistry. Shout out to Canadian artistry, Canadian artists. Two things are happening in that statement simultaneously. She is crediting Kendrick and SZA for the artistry that made the video possible, and she is planting a flag for Canadian creative talent in a global conversation that does not always remember to include them. Both of those things matter, and both of them are connected to something bigger that this video is going to get into. Because before anyone can fully understand why this Juno win is more significant than it appears on the surface, it helps to understand exactly what Luther is and what it did. Luther is a track from Kendrick Lamar's album GNX, released in late 2024. It features SZA. It samples the legendary Luther Vandross, specifically his iconic version of Never Too Much, and it builds something new and emotionally devastating on top of that foundation. The song is a love letter, not in the greeting card sense, in the real sense, the kind of love letter that feels like it was written by someone who has actually been somewhere emotionally and came back with something to say about it. When the music video dropped, directed by Karena Evans, a Canadian director who has already established herself as one of the most visually gifted storytellers working in music video today, it became immediately clear that this was not a promotional clip. This was a short film, a visual experience that treated the song with the same seriousness and intention that Kendrick brought to the music itself. The visuals matched the weight of the lyrics, the cinematography matched the emotional register of SZA's performance. The whole thing felt like it was made by people who understood that when you were working with a Kendrick Lamar record, you do not phone it in, you rise to the occasion or you step aside. Karena Evans rose to the occasion, and the Juno voters noticed. Here is where this story stops being a simple awards update and starts being something worth genuinely paying attention to. There is a pattern surrounding Kendrick Lamar that has become so consistent, so documented, so undeniable at this point, that it almost feels less like a coincidence and more like a system. Every person who works with him wins something. Not every person, not almost every person, every. Think about it. SZA collaborated with him on Luther and now holds a Juno Award. Karena Evans directed the video and now holds a Juno Award. The artists who appeared on his Grammy-winning projects walked away with their own recognition. The producers, the engineers, the creative directors, the people who touch a Kendrick Lamar project at any level tend to find themselves elevated in ways that outlast the project itself. This is not normal. This is not standard industry behavior. In an industry that runs on ego, on credit disputes, on featured artists being buried in the mix, on directors being treated as hired hands rather than creative partners, Kendrick Lamar operates differently. He does not treat collaboration as a transaction, he treats it as a commitment. And that commitment, that decision to show up fully and demand that everyone around him does the same, produces work that awards bodies cannot ignore, regardless of where those bodies are located. The Juno Awards are in Canada. Kendrick Lamar is from Compton, California. The song samples an icon from Virginia, and the director is a Canadian woman who made something so extraordinary that it crossed every geographic and cultural boundary and landed in the winner's circle anyway. That is what happens when the standard is excellence rather than convenience. Hold on. Stop scrolling. Stop multitasking. Stop whatever you are doing with your second screen. Because what is coming next is the part of this story that reframes everything, the part that nobody in mainstream music coverage is connecting, even though the dots are sitting there in plain sight. Subscribe to Pop Showroom before you keep watching. This channel exists for exactly this kind of moment, the moment where a story that looks like a simple awards update turns out to be a case study in something much larger about how greatness actually works in the music industry, the moment where the surface-level headline is just the beginning of what there is to understand. Hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, tell the algorithm you are serious, then keep going, because the next section of this video is the one that is going to stay with viewers long after it ends. Here is the thing that nobody is saying loudly enough. Karena Evans is Canadian. Luther winning Best Music Video at the Juno Awards is not just a Kendrick Lamar win, it is a Canadian win. It is recognition at a national level that the creative talent responsible for one of the most celebrated music videos of the year came from Canada, and that without a Canadian director's vision, eye, and craft, this video does not exist in the form that earned it a Grammy nomination, international critical acclaim, and now a Juno Award. In her speech, Karena Evans made sure to say it. Shout out to Canadian artistry. Shout out to Canadian artists. That is not a throwaway line. That is a claim. A statement of ownership over a cultural moment that the world was ready to attribute entirely to the American artists whose names are on the song. And Kendrick Lamar, who did not have to hire a Canadian director, who could have chosen any visual storyteller on the planet with his level of access and budget, chose someone whose work he respected, whose vision aligned with his, and whose talent was undeniable. That choice led to a Juno Award, a Grammy nomination, international recognition for a Canadian creative who might otherwise have remained a footnote in a conversation dominated by the names above the title. He immortalized her. Whether that was the intention or not, that is the outcome. And that is the twist in this story that mainstream coverage completely glossed over. This was not Kendrick winning a Canadian award. This was Kendrick's decision to work with a Canadian artist, resulting in that Canadian artist being recognized on her home country's biggest stage, and using that moment to make a statement about Canadian creative excellence that the industry needed to hear. There is a concept worth naming directly because it keeps showing up in Kendrick Lamar's career, and nobody has given it a proper title yet. Call it the immortalization principle. The idea is this: when you are at a certain level of artistic credibility, the people you choose to work with inherit a portion of that credibility permanently, not temporarily, not for the duration of the press cycle, permanently. When Kendrick Lamar puts his name on something, that something becomes part of a catalog that is going to be discussed, analyzed, awarded, and studied for decades. Every collaborator attached to that something gets carried along in that permanent conversation. SZA knew this. She has spoken about what it meant to work with Kendrick on projects that she understood would outlive the moment they were released in. Karena Evans knew this too. The visual language she brought to Luther was not made for a 3-day press cycle. It was made for the kind of video that gets shown in film school classrooms, in music video retrospectives years from now. And here is the uncomfortable implication of that principle for everyone watching. If you were choosing who to work with, who to give your energy to, who to attach your name to, the question is not just whether they are talented right now. The question is whether the work you are going to produce together is going to carry weight 10 years from now, whether the person you are building with is building something that lasts or something that trends. Kendrick Lamar consistently builds things that last, and the people around him get to last with him. That is not an accident. That is a standard, a decision made repeatedly across a career with full understanding of what that standard costs and what it produces. The Juno Award for Luther is one more piece of evidence in a body of evidence that has been accumulating for a decade. So here is where this all lands. Kendrick Lamar cannot stop winning awards. That much is obvious. That much has been obvious for years. The Grammys, the Pulitzers, the chart records, the cultural moments. The list is long and still growing. But the more interesting story is not that Kendrick keeps winning. It is who he keeps winning with. It is the directors, in the features, in the producers, and the creative partners who walk into a room as talented people and walk out of it as award-winning legends because they were given the opportunity, the trust, and the creative environment to produce something genuinely extraordinary. Karena Evans just won a Juno Award. SZA added another international recognition to her name. The song about Luther Vandross, built on a sample of one of the most beloved voices in soul music history, is now a Juno Award winner in addition to everything else it has already become. And Kendrick Lamar keeps adding names to the list of people whose careers will be permanently elevated by a decision he made to work with them, trust them, and demand the best from them. That is what greatness at scale actually looks like. Not just the trophies, not just the streams, not just the headlines. It's the people who get carried upward in the draft of it. If this video gave you something real to think about, not just a hot take, but an actual framework for understanding how excellence works in this industry, then subscribe to Pop Showroom right now. This channel covers the stories underneath the stories, the patterns that only become visible when you zoom out far enough to see the whole picture. The music industry moments that look simple from the outside and turn out to be something much more layered once someone takes the time to actually follow the thread. We follow the thread every single time. Subscribe, share this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and tell this community, who do you think Kendrick immortalizes next?